Hello, welcome to the Diet NPO podcast. My name is Zak Kaesberg. I'm a registered dietitian, and I will be your host for this podcast today. This pod is by dietitians, for RDs to be, people who need support on concepts related to dietetics and the RD exam in particular. Currently, I work as a food service RD at my alma mater, working for a campus dining department, but I have a history of clinical and outpatient dietetics, and I've been a long-time RD exam tutor and educator who loves to kind of bring this full perspective to help you with your RD exam prep. Now, summer for me, since I work in food service, since I work in campus dining, really ebbs and flows throughout the year. So I can tell you that summer is definitely a big variation as to what my normal schedule is going to be. We may be doing more recipe building, testing, training, ultimately planning. You remember planning, right? Planning was that primary function of management in the RD exam. And specifically today, we're going to talk about facility planning a little bit. Now, I'm going to be trying to give you some of my examples that I take from my job because a lot of us got very different variations as far as what our food service rotation looked like. So I like to give you kind of the highest quality of what I can give you to give you good examples as you go into the exam. So sit back, enjoy. We'll talk about facility planning and then we'll apply it to some questions as well. The university I work at is currently developing a new residence hall and thus a new dining center. So keep in mind, this is a multi-million-dollar operation. So you can guess proper planning will certainly be needed as we're prepping to make sure we don't go over that budget and make sure we finish the project in that correct amount of time. On our end, we're working on facility planning for this dining center. Now, a key point here, facility planning is the act of planning and arranging a kitchen or workspace to best fit the facility's needs. And some 3 years ago, our office began talking about this process, and we had our first step underway here. Let's get familiar with a few introductory concepts. Facility planning, by the way, it's not an area where I'm going to recommend you do lots of memorization. There's some terms that we're going to bring up, but really I want you to use your critical thinking as you're applying this to the exam. Less memorization, more application and more examples that makes us a better RD. So be familiar and understand these, but don't always feel like you have to know them by heart. Think of your dream house or your dream home in planning out your dream kitchen. You may start with your kitchen design as a good term to focus on. That design is focused on your overall use of space, the shape, the style, the decoration of the kitchen. Then once you have a nice design, you'd probably come up with a layout of some kind. And a layout is just a bit more official, where we're saying this detailed arrangement of equipment, floor space, counters, all of these things getting in on the layout part of it there. If you were planning to make a whole facility, not just your own dream kitchen, you may also consider your flow. And take a moment to put together what you think flow means in a kitchen, and we'll talk about it together too. You may be thinking about how a kitchen flows, and there are two types of flow that we bring up in the food service operations. There's product flow, or flow of food that we commonly talk about, such as when the product flows from storage to the kitchen to be prepped to service. Flow of food is how it gets to that customer. We also have the traffic flow as well, which is how your employees are going to move through this food service operation as well. So two different types of flow there. We're going to have that product flow as well as our employee flow as well. Now, some 3 years ago when we started this process, we started creating a planning team, and that was our first step towards building this new facility. These were probably attended by our director, our assistant directors, our head of facilities, our executive chef. This is your planning team of 5 to 10 individuals who come together to bring their vision and outlook for the new dining center. Once that team is formed, we're ready to go out. Think of ADIME here, people. Whenever we're trying to understand anything in our field, whether it's a patient or it's a program, what's always the first thing that we start with ADIME? Well, assessment, of course, right? At this stage of planning, you're going to be gathering some information from staff members in your department. So that small group of 5 to 10, they're kind of branching out to get more opinions from the people that actually work in this department. This could be our head chef going to our lower chefs to get their opinion on types of equipment or types of service. It could be the director speaking with the registered dietitians about creating an allergy-friendly service venue. You're acquiring information about what your staff feel should be done with the new dining center based on their observations. You could even form charrettes, which is a key term that are also known as these collaborative planning sessions. Think of chatty charrettes, where people are coming together to collaborate. This could be a small group of an architect, the dietitian, a labor manager, a chef, a director, that are all coming together to talk about the planning process and get those opinions out there. It's also helpful to create what's known as a bubble diagram in these initial stages. And a bubble diagram is actually something really fun. A bubble diagram is a mapped out chart and diagram of the relationships of these different department areas. So you may create a bubble between the service area and then put a bubble right next to where the kitchen is. So you're showing that relationship between the service to the customer and to the kitchen. You may put a bubble between your storage area and where you receive your food and your dock. You're showing those relationships between those two. And this is going to be really helpful for when you're trying to put together that whole facility planning process to know what are the relationships between these different departments. To give you a little help, here's the types of questions that we would be asking during these planning stages. How will the food be served to the customers? Will they be eating on premises or to go primarily? How much storage are we going to have? How much production will be outsourced? What types of equipment will the menu require? These are all the types of questions that we are going to be asking. For instance, our new dining center is going to have less seats for the customer and meal plan holders. So much of the menus that we're starting to form need to be grab and go to go items. And it really is important to get that in early, right? Once that information has been acquired, we're now going to start developing things. We'll develop a program or a written plan overview to present to construction companies and architects. So we're going to develop a written plan overview. It's kind of like our basis of here's the things that we want. This would be reviewed, and eventually it would get escalated to what's called a schematic plan, the scheme, right? A schematic plan is like a preset construction project. So when we gave them our written plan, this is like saying, hey, here's all the things we want our dining center to include. Then the architects, the construction company came back with that schematic plan to say, okay, here's how things are going to look as like a preset construction project. Later down the line, we'll have developed a blueprint, and you know what that is. It's that written out area that shows exactly the dimensions of where everything in that facility is going to be set. We'd even had noted areas for specifications. Do you remember that term? Does it come to mind? The specification, or the specs, are those predetermined equipment or food products that we've already agreed to purchase. So on that blueprint, we can say we're going to order this exact oven, this exact dishwasher. Now that you've planned enough, let's break ground onto some practice questions together. Number 1, a model that demonstrates the space and relationship between spaces of a facility is known as a what? A charrette, a focus group, a bubble diagram, or schematic plan. A model that demonstrates the space and relationship between areas of a facility is known as a what? Now I'm going to approach the way I would on the exam, and you'll see me use a lot of this process of elimination to try to help put myself in the best position to get this question right. I write on my board here A, B, C, and D. And as I look at these, I'll start with A, charrette. Well, I learned about charrettes as being those collaborative meetings where people come together. Is it going to show the relationship and space between things? I'm not so sure. I think I'm going to rule out A because I don't think this is an example of a charrette. B, focus group. Well, I know focus groups are good for like the community setting. It can be good to get opinions of different people and more of that qualitative type of information, not so quantitative. But I don't think it's going to demonstrate space and relationship. So I'm going to rule out B as well. C, a bubble diagram. Well, I think a bubble diagram would be an okay answer because it did show that relationship between space and those different areas of the facility in their relationship between each other. I'm going to hold on to C. D, schematic plan. In the schematic plan, I think that was that kind of preset construction project coming from the architect that says, hey, here's what we're going to do. So I would rule out answer D. That's going to leave me with C, a bubble diagram, as my best answer there. Number 2, the movement of employees throughout a facility is known as what? A, flow of food. B, traffic flow. C, product flow. Or D, informational flow. The movement of employees throughout a facility is also known as what? Flow of food, traffic flow, product flow, or informational flow. So I get my A, B, C, and D written down, and I'm going to kind of make a note as I go through each. Flow of food. Well, the flow of food would kind of imply like how the food, I would think, is flowing through my kitchen. And this seems more focused on employees, so I would probably rule out answer A. Traffic flow. I'm going to hold on to traffic flow for now. I think that might have to do with my employees, but I want to check all my answers first. C, product flow. So how the product is moving through my kitchen. I don't think that's going to be a good fit because that's kind of similar to flow of food for me. And then D, informational flow. Well, I haven't heard this term before, but I'm guessing it's how information flows throughout the facility. And I don't think that's a fit for the employees. So I'm going to rule that one out, leaving me with B, traffic flow, as my best answer there. Number 3, specifications such as item numbers for ovens or dishwashing equipment would be found on the blank. Is it going to be the A, the blueprint, B, schematic design, C, the layout, or D, the bubble diagram? Specifications such as item numbers for ovens or dishwashing equipment will be found on the blueprint, schematic design, layout, or bubble diagram. I'm going to start with D here. I know it wasn't the bubble diagram there because the bubble diagram we talked about was that relationship between spaces in the facility. So I'm going to rule out D. I don't think that's a good fit. As well as the schematic design. I know it is kind of a more literal, specific type of document, but it's really just this preset construction project. It's not going to have those specs in there to me. So I'm going to rule out B. So I'm left with the blueprint or the layout. And I would say that the blueprint will be the best fit because the layout is where everything is going to get laid out in my dream kitchen, but the blueprint is exactly the equipment that I'm going to buy. So I'm going to go with A, blueprint, as our best answer on that one. A little bit of what's eating you for this segment. I wanted to review what we had at our recent NutriFest event at work at Campus Dining. We served soybean cabbage cups. Now stay with me here. This consisted of boiled soybeans, which was a local product showing our sustainability initiatives. Then that was then sauteed with onions, carrots, shishito peppers, mushrooms, green onions, and cabbage together. You see, we took these whole heads of cabbage to make these raw cabbage cups so then we could fill with the sauté. But the problem is you have tons of leftover cabbage waste after that. So we needed a way to kind of get that added in there. So we used that waste into the recipe to kind of add some shredded cabbage in. We then put this inside of a raw cabbage cup with local white rice, the soybean sauté, and then a coconut aminos based sweet and sour sauce to keep it top 9 free for all of our customers so we wouldn't keep that soy and that wheat in there. So I hope you enjoyed those little good bites of knowledge that you picked up today, you dietitian enthusiasts you. Don't forget to rate, review, subscribe to the Diet NPO podcast, reach out with RD exam advice, and as always, happy studying to you.